I'm Katie Buckland. I'm the executive director of the Writers Guild Foundation. And I am just thrilled to see all of you here this afternoon. And I'm also thrilled to introduce two women who inspire me, and I'm sure inspire many of you as well. They show what happens when you combine hard work with dedication to your craft, and are here today to tell us how they took this amazing story from scribble to screen. Please join me with a warm welcome for Ava DuVernay and Oprah Winfrey.
Hi. Welcome. Thank you. It's Saturday, and look at us.
This is crazy. Wow.
This is what you all do on your Saturday afternoons. You gave it up for us.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. This is a thrill for me because I have a chance to share what I know to be true about the story of Queen Sugar, our cast, and Ava DuVernay. And I think Ava is really a role model for our times. I was thinking on the drive down here that if I were doing the Oprah show, I would have had you on many times already. Just to talk about what it means to have a seed of a dream inside yourself and then have the courage and the will to follow it. Because there's so many people who are in positions where they're working, maybe they're publicists, or maybe they're assistants, or maybe they're working in jobs that don't really make them feel alive every day, and have this kernel of something inside them that says, I believe I could write, or I believe I could be a filmmaker or a storyteller. And because of you now, because of seeing how you have done it, will feel more courageous in doing it themselves. I know that is true. Mm-hmm. So I want to know how it was. Like, you were a publicist. Did you like it?
I loved my job.
You liked your job?
I liked it a lot. I mean, it was a stressful job. First of all, thank you all for being here. It's a beautiful day outside, and you're in here watching this. I always say, and it's really, really true, whenever I step out from the side to any kind of screening, I'm always shocked that people are even sitting there. I really, really am. And this is a really big hall. You all look amazing.
On Saturday.
So anyway, thank you. Yeah.
Saturday afternoon.
I was a publicist and I enjoyed it. It was a stressful, job. The publicist is the person who, most stars go on a TV show and they think, they want me on this TV show. They don't understand that a publicist is called the booker and pitch them and beg someone to get them on the TV show. Most people go on a red carpet and are like, look at all these people screaming my name. They don't know that a publicist actually rolled that red carpet, called every single photographer, sent a confirmation, made sure they were there, validated the parking. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I did. But I loved it because it got me close to film, which is something that I loved since I was a little girl. Some people are sports people, or some people are into politics. I was just always, always, always into movies. And so publicity got me close, and I really liked it, but being around it, I felt like I wanted to be inside of it instead of on the edge of it.
Did you do publicity because at first you thought, I can only be on the edge of it? Did you do it because you thought you couldn't be inside of it, or the road to being inside of it would be too?
I never had a dream about being inside of it. I didn't even think that was I didn't even know that was possible. I just wanted to work around film. I didn't even think about being a director or a writer. I just was so happy that I love publicity, I love media, and I didn't have a concept of a black woman director at that time. So it was just something I never thought about. Not like it's impossible to me, I can't do that. It was absent from my imagination as a possibility of something to do.
So when is the moment that it occurred to you, I can do that?
I was on a set of a film called Collateral.
Yeah.
That Michael Mann was a great director, was directing, and his scene was in East LA. Has anyone seen that film? Great film. Looks so good, such a good film. But anyway, Javier Bardem has a small part in that film that most people don't remember. He wasn't Javier Bardem then. So I was on the set, background, Javier Bardem, Jada Pinkett, Jamie Foxx, and Tom Cruise.
You were representing all those people?
I handled the movie.
You handled the movie?
Yeah, and so I was on the set as they were shooting the movie, And they were shooting this scene in East LA, not far from where I grew up, Compton, South Central area. And I had had experiences on that same street. Like, I had hung out on that street, and I thought, I could do this. Like, this is in my place where I grew up, and I know this story. Like, I could do what he's doing. It just clicked for me. And literally the next weekend, I started writing my first script, right? Because it just clicked for me at that moment, like, oh, it doesn't have to be him doing it. Like, I could possibly do it. Now, at that point, I had no context for any story that I was interested in being inside a studio or a network system. So I immediately started writing something small that I knew I would find.
How did you know you could write?
How did I know I could write? I could write press releases.
Okay. Because I was going to say, up until then,
aren't you? A good headline, I could just.
Up until then, you're writing press releases, right?
I was up writing press releases, and I writing in school, and I always have been complimented on my writing. It was a school newspaper, that kind of thing. But I did what everyone. I got Robert McGee's story. I started reading Save the Cat. Like all the Barnes and Nobled it up. You know what I mean? All the screenwriting classes. Take my little bit of money. I took a few UCLA extension classes just to get form. Shout out to the Bruins. And yeah, just started putting it together little by little. It was really, in screenwriting, it was more the form. But then also, like, do you have a voice? Do you have something to say? And that was my mom who always said, don't just write anything. Like, what do you want to say with it? And you always tell me like that. What do you want to say? That's how we came up with Queen Sugar, because I wasn't focused.
I'm getting to that.
That's why, because I wasn't focused on what I wanted to say at first.
Yeah.
But when I stayed through to what do I want to say, what do I want to amplify, and I use my screenwriting as a voice, my voice, that's when I do well. When I do something else, it gets shaky.
Were you intimidated in the beginning? Because you said you left Michael Mann set. Did you still continue like your day job?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I kept my day job up until, it was after I won Sundance. I made 4 films. Yeah. I mean, who knows? They were all independent films. I was making them with my own money and distributing them myself. So there was no context for me to be like, I'm a filmmaker, I'm quitting my job. Like, still need to pay my rent. So I had a whole bunch of bill extensions. So I was like, let me go over here and put a little bit on this extension on this light bill real quick. But but I still needed a job. Miss Winfrey's looking at me like, extension on a light bill? What kind of this? What? Are extensions possible?
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I thought you just had to pay the whole thing. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
My favorite, I just have to say this quickly. One of my favorite things with her are just seeing her do normal things. Like the first time I saw her drive a car, I was like, do you remember? I was like, you're driving. She's like, yeah. Or when she's just in a store, and I talked to her in Atlanta. I said, where'd you do today? I went to Trader Joe's.
Yes.
You went to Trader Joe's.
Anyway,
how did that go?
Anyway, back to you.
No, but anyway, those experiences early on, I was still definitely working up through that time. And I really didn't. I was working independently, so I wasn't really showing my stuff to studios, networks. I didn't have an agent, none of that for the first 4 films. So I didn't feel like any pressure. I didn't feel nervous about it because I was
you then created your own distribution system because you realized.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to go around knocking on closed doors and expect some different result than had happened for the last several decades for other people.
Yeah.
So I just, decided to figure out a way to do it on my own.
Wow. Yeah. So let's talk about sugar.
Okay.
All right. So this is what happened. This is what's so amazing about that we're sitting here in front of you all today, because just less than 2 years ago, we were sitting on my front porch. We're sitting on my front porch. And Ava had finished Selma, and she was exhausted and didn't even, yes. And as her friend, I was trying to convince her to just take a week, come on. She goes, I don't have a week. I have to edit. So take 4 days, because if you come to Maui, 4 days will feel like 7 feels like 10, and so on. So I convinced her to come, and I had just finished reading the book Queen Sugar and wanted her to read it because, when I read something really good, I like other people to read it. And so I was trying to convince her to read it, and she was like, no, I'm all right. I'm okay. And I then left the book by her nightstand and put it around, just so that when you go in the kitchen, you see the book. Queen Sugar. Or you turn off the lights to go to sleep. There it is. So what made you actually pick it up?
Well, because it was everywhere I turned.
And then after saying, nah, don't think so, what was it about it? Because I actually, I said, I think this can be a series. And at first you said no, and then what changed?
You had just told me about it, and I hadn't read it. Natalie Baszile, who's here, the author of this beautiful work, when I read her words and saw how the story unfolds and how it had this beautiful character nuance, at first it was like, when you're telling me about it, it's like a family and a sugar plantation. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But when I read it, it's so deeply felt and so beautifully written, and the characters, you can tell the author really cared for these people and the research into doing it, that I just felt like, wow, I love the people. And so, I immediately, I think before, on the plane ride home,
Yes.
I sent you a full outline for the series on the plane ride.
And I was like, yes! Full outline, I'll take it as is. Then you started the process of writing it. And what happened?
Well, it was a horrible pride-swallowing siege of a process to write this. I always admire, my friend Ryan Coogler is, Ryan getting spontaneous applause, okay. Great guy. I remember one time I called him, I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, what's up, A? I said, where are you? He says, I'm in a coffee shop, writing. I was like, wow, you sound really happy. You're having a good day? He's like, I'm writing, yeah. It's like, you enjoy this process? Some writers really love it. Yeah. I really don't.
You don't?
I really, really don't. Like, I've always written my own stuff, from Selma to Middle of Nowhere to Iowa Falls to the 13th, everything I write. And, I really don't enjoy the process. I procrastinate until the last moment. I look at people and it's like, I have to write today. What are you doing? I go back and forth with cups of coffee. I'll get in one place. I'll stay there for an hour. I'm uncomfortable, drive to another place. It's like a hot mess. So
I do remember this because when we were working on Sugar, you remember you came and you were just going to write.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, we sure are eating a lot. I think writing must also involve eating, too, because I would be like, well, do you want to go back up to the cabin and write? She said, no, I'm fine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. I admire people who really love that writing process. The beautiful Queen Sugar writers, some of the first season writers are here. They'd be in the room. I'd go into the room and they'd be ready to write and talk and write. And I'd just be like, okay. Tell me what you guys come up with, and then let's talk about it real quick, because the writing process is tough for me. So the first thing I did was I adapted the book. You said you wanted this as a series.
Yes.
I thought it could be a series. So I wrote a pilot that was the book, and I handed it to you very proudly, like, it's not that hard, done. And she said, oh. I was like, what? And she's like, I thought there'd be more. I was like, what do you mean more?
No, then you're like, you hate it, right? You hate it? Oh, you don't like it. I said, I don't like it. I just thought there'd be more.
I mean, what are you? And I was like, okay, more. Got you, okay. Like, okay, got it. I'll do more. So then I went back and did the second draft. I was like, she wants more, I'm gonna give her more. They were doing voodoo and rituals, and there was a murder, and it was like, it was a typhoon coming through the town, and literally, the first scene was a flashback of like a voodoo spell.
And I said, Ava, I don't know if the public's ready for a voodoo extravaganza here. Yeah, murder and voodoo happening. Yeah. You got to tone that down a tad. Yeah.
And so I felt some kind of way. I was like, wow, I've given her two things, and truth, to be honest, there was another series, Greenleaf, and we were supposed to shoot first, and they were going to shoot first, and I was like, she likes Greenleaf better than she likes Sweet Sugar, and I've done two, and I can't get it right, and I was just like, wow, she's disappointing her, which was just killing me. And so I said, I'm going to try it one more time. But the last thing you said on that second time is you said, what do you want to say? Yeah. What do you want to say?
Did I remind you of your mama then?
Don't think of it as a
Yeah.
job or assignment or something you have to do or someone you have to please. What do you want to say with it? And that's when I sat down for that one. I said, well, I want to say, that, we don't know the lives of formerly incarcerated people, when they are formerly incarcerated and how we keep them as second-class citizens. And I want there to be a character on television with locks who has a job in criminal justice. And I want to talk about a woman who's self-determined and who can build an empire, and yet, how she deals with betrayal and all of that. And I want there to be a matriarch that's like you and like my mom that's like 60 but sexy. You know what I mean? Like, I want those things. I want a Hollywood, so I'm going to put them in there. You know what I mean? I want those things. And so once I took Natalie Bazile's beautiful foundation and started to say, okay, well, maybe I can tweak this and tweak this. The other thing was the permission to build on what Natalie had done, because I was being I didn't know how to adapt. So I didn't understand that you can, apply, that there was freedom to take what the foundation was and kind of take it in a different direction or further, or, it needs to, her book, if I just straight adapted it, would maybe 3 episodes. But, we've got 13 in the first season, second season already ordered, 16. And, yeah. And so you have to keep the story going. Yeah, and so Natalie's permission to do that, beautiful sister is just like, go do what you have to do with it. And to have, the network owned by a friend who said, go do it. And then a great studio, Warner Horizon, that said, whatever Oprah says, that's fine with us. Lovely.
So I want to know if your process is different between mediums. So this was your first scripted television series. At the same time you were writing and doing this, you were also writing 13th. At the same time you started working on Wrinkle. You're doing all these things at the same time. Is the process different for different mediums?
The process of this television show was really eye-opening to me. I called Shonda Rhimes and I was like, how do you do this? I mean, you have 90 shows. One of them's been on for 100 years. Like, how? I can barely, I'm like episode 6 and like dragging in. It was really because, these episodes, you're writing one while you're shooting another, while you're prepping another, while you're editing another, while you're composing another, like all of these different stages of production, and still trying to keep track of the story and work with the directors and the editors. And so it was a process because I did it from a directorial mind, not from a showrunner's mind. I probably did it the wrong way the first season, where I had my hands in everything because it was my thing, and so I was holding it really tightly. This season I feel like, I can, now that it's been established, I can open up a little more. But it was a hard process. It was like making a 13-hour movie. That's
because
how
I was going to
approached
ask, how does directing, producing also affect the writing? Does it?
I didn't know how to do it any other way than the way that I do a film, and I know now that that was too close. I was holding everything too close, and so I've learned how to do the TV piece, and you can't do it all. But yeah, I mean, being the director of something that you've written, whether it's film or television, I was just looking at the first few minutes there, and I remember writing the piece, and as the directorial prerogative is that, and I really feel for writers that have to hand off their work, and I feel so respectful. This is the first time working with a screenwriter, Jennifer Lee, who wrote Frozen, who's writing Wrinkle in Time. I feel really respectful of, when she gives me a script, trying to stay true to what she's written, or talk to her in advance about changes I want to make. Because I can't imagine giving yourself and your stuff to someone, and then you look at it and you're like, they just messed that up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not what I meant. And so, when I write the scene of Nova and Charlie reuniting in the hallway, as a director, I can make that exactly what I want it to be, especially when you have amazing actors and crew to put it together. So yeah, being a writer and a director allows for the full vision as it was birthed from you to get as close to that on screen as possible.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the audience, because when I saw your father's name up on the screen in loving memory of Murray May, I asked Ava if it was okay to mention this to you all, that scene where Ralph Angel and Blue and Pops are in the hospital room. Ava wrote that, and what, a month later, you and your family were in that exact same scene with your father passing.
Yeah, I wrote it and shot it. We shot it. And it was the first time I ever cried on a set. So like I shot it, my father was healthy and fine. He actually came out and watched me shoot parts of episodes 1 and 2, drove down from Montgomery, Alabama to New Orleans one afternoon, and they watched us shoot the scene, one of the scenes with Blue, and he met the cast. And it was perfectly fine. And we shot that scene. I finished my 2 episodes, and I remember crying in that scene. It was the first time I ever cried on a set
You
of any
actually
movie.
texted me, said it was the first time you'd ever cried on a set.
Selma, Dr. King, beatings, murders, all the hard things that I've shot. And I never cried in the scene. I was always able to separate myself from what was happening. For whatever reason, when I looked through my camera and I saw those 3 men on that bed, the boy, the older man, and Kofi Siriboe, Ralph Angel, I actually shed tears in the scene, and it was less than a month later, I was in the hospital room, and that same thing was happening. And so my father passed away, and I feel like, I don't know what that was. We've talked about it. I don't know what it was. Nothing to talk about here, but, I feel like so much of what we talk about with families and things that are deeply felt, especially with black men, we know who black men are at their core. We know that scene in the hospital bed is who our men are, much more than how they're portrayed in the media and as caricatures and stereotypes and the disrespect and the stereotyping and the disregard. So the goal was really to show that humanity. And when I see any part of the series, I just think of my father and my family, and I want people to feel the interiority of us when they watch the show.
I love that. So how has the process, your filmmaking process, changed from I Will Follow, which was what, $50,000?
$50,000.
Yeah, you were saying anytime you do a movie for $50,000, you're doing a lot of things illegally.
You're doing a lot of things what?
Illegally. Remember you
Oh,
said
yeah, illegal.
you,
Oh, yeah.
you don't have a permit or you just get in, shoot, get out.
Oh, yeah, no. Permits, no.
So how has the process changed from 50,000 to 200,000, 20 million, now over 100 million? Is it hard to adjust?
Is it hard to adjust?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it actually has been a progressive process that's been really, really lovely.
Yeah?
Yeah, I haven't found it hard to adjust, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like on Wrinkle in Time right now. It's there are people doing jobs I didn't know were even needed.
Well, that's what I mean. All of a sudden now you have this budget, this big budget.
A huge budget. I was walking down the hallway the day you
Yes.
were there, that day, and there was a woman sitting in a cubicle that I hadn't seen. I said, "Hi, I'm Ava," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, nice to meet you." I said, "I'd like everyone to come in and introduce themselves when they join the crew, and I don't remember seeing you. I have a picture list of all the crew so I can know everybody." And she's like, "No, I just kind of came in at the last minute." I said, "Okay, so what are you doing with us?" She said, "I'm the environmental steward." I said, I don't have a role called environment. What is that? I said, what do you do? I make sure that the set is green. Everything that we do is green. The materials on the set can be recycled. How the gas that pumps the thing is repurposed. And I'm sitting in there fascinated. Yeah,
You have an environmental steward.
I'm an environmental steward. The thrills that money can buy, environmental stores. So yes, it's things like that you don't even know you want. And now, even if I make a $50,000 film, we must have an environmental steward. Who is going to be the environmental steward? So it's lovely.
It's lovely. I want to talk about our cast. I'm going to bring up our beautiful cast. And as I introduce each of them, first of all, I want to know what was it about each one that you chose. So let's talk first about Kofi. Kofi Siriboe.
We'll do him first because he's the baby. He's our
Yes.
baby.
Yeah.
It's disconcerting to us because many women look at him and don't think of him as their baby. Think of him as something else, but he's still our little baby. But they think of him as baby.
They want to make some babies.
And I say,
Not
don't
yet.
talk of him that way. He's
Yeah.
just ours. But I really, there are a lot of really, really talented people in this town. Extremely talented people from around the world in this town. So when I have an audition, you see talent coming through the door left and right. Talent is a dime a dozen in this town. It really is. It's the spirit that I'm looking for that goes with the talent. And so, you know, it's someone that you want to work with and live with and create a family with around these projects, you know, because this, especially with this, it's going to live on. So in all of the cast, that's what I'm looking for. Talent plus who you are as a person, the essence of you. And he walked in just like a shimmering black prince of beauty, of spirit. And truly, like a beautiful... No, I mean, and I'll say this, he's a very handsome guy, but there's a lot of handsome guys in Hollywood. It truly is, and I see them all, trust me, all of them. And, but you know, he had a sensibility, a swagger that wasn't forced, a humility, and the spirit of him really shone through when I sat with him after his audition. And so I was just so honored that he embraced Ralph Angel and created a character that I think we'll remember for a long time.
Kofi Siriboe, coming up here. Sit right there. It's great.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Rutina Wesley.
Rutina Wesley, I had had my eye on for a while, just a fan of her work in True Blood. I had actually, fantastic. I didn't watch the show as closely as like the hardcore True Blood fans, but I'd seen a few episodes and knew the work that she was doing. The first time I ever met her, though, was as a publicist. I was a publicist for the first film she ever made called How She Move. And I remember encountering her at the junket and seeing this strikingly beautiful woman and feeling like she had such power in front of the camera and seeing her and says, wow, once she grows into that power in front of the camera, off the camera, she's gonna be unstoppable. And then kind of, you know, just lost track of her. Saw her a little bit in True Blood, but when I encountered her in our casting process for Sugar, she walked through the door and I was like, it's all caught up. Like, it's all happening for her right now. The talent, who she is off camera, like, this whole thing is going on for this woman, and it just glows from her. So I was happy that she accepted the role of Nova Bordelon.
Rutina Wesley.
T.
Say hey to the WGA.
Work. Sit, walk, work with the dress and legs.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Dawn-Lyen Gardner.
Dawn-Lyen Gardner plays Charlie. When I first saw her audition tape, I don't know why we don't talk about this a lot. It's not a secret, but when I first saw her audition tape, she was in New York. She auditioned for Darla, the Ralph Angel's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. And she was extraordinary as Darla. I said, this woman is incredible. You saw that tape.
Yeah.
She was so good as Darla, and our great casting director said, you know what? I think she might be a Charlie. And I was like, nope, I think she's a Darla. She's Darla. She's like, well, let's just have her go on tape as Charlie. And she did, and I was like, she's a Charlie, she's a Darla, she's whatever she wants to be. She was so fantastic, and then having a chance to meet her, and just such a gorgeous spirit, really has an energy unlike anyone I've ever met, just very careful about all her choices, and just everything has meaning to her. So Dawn-Lyen Gardner is Charlie Bordelon.
Our Charlie Bordelon. And meet the woman now for whom, if it were not for her words, none of us would be here. Natalie Baszile, the author of Queen Sugar, the novel. So many times I know authors get excited that someone wants to take their work and turn it into a film, or in this case, turn it into a series, but there's always, too, this feeling that once I hand it over, what's going to become of my work? So what was your expectation of this adaptation?
My expectation? I think I wanted for this to be something different. That was my hope. When I wrote Queen Sugar, I wrote it because I wasn't seeing books about African Americans and people of color that, like you were saying, were like people I knew. And so in handing it off to Ava and you, I really, if I had any expectation or any hope, it was that you would offer audiences something that was different from a lot of what I felt we were seeing on film and in television. I really wanted it to be unusual. I wanted it to be nuanced. I wanted it to be full-bodied. I wanted it to be a warm embrace. I wanted it to be a celebration. That's what I'd hoped.
And you watch every week and feel.
I watch every week. I watch every week. And you know, it's fun. It's really fun to see, you know, sometimes it's big chunks of the story, the book. Sometimes it's little kernels. And it's always fun for me to see, you know, what resonated with you and how you have, you know, made the most of what I had in the book. It's fun to see. It's fun to see. It's a fun ride.
Well, thank you for the words.
Thank you.
Thank you for the words, really. So, I have to ask you guys, when you first got the script, what particular words jumped off the page in a way that made you say yes? Was there a particular phrase or a particular scene or?
Well, first it was the title of the script, Queen Sugar. Mm-hmm. And then for me particularly, when
Did you even know what that meant?
Absolutely not. So I was like, what is this? Okay. And then I saw Ava's name, I saw your name. And then it said my character was like wearied by life or something to that extent. And he was just, that was the first time we saw him. We saw him and he was already at that place. I was like, damn, what happened to him? Like, who is this guy? And that's what began the exploration. I was like, I want to know who this is because sometimes we see people day to day and we don't know where they're at. So to be able to hop in the middle of this guy's life at such a transitional time, him being formerly incarcerated, it just became instantly just gravitating.
Dawn?
For me, it was 2 scenes in the script.
Okay.
One of them, we actually never shot. It was in the pilot. And it was a scene in her bathroom. It was originally the first time you were going to see Charlie. She was in the bathroom, and she was no makeup and no contacts, glasses, and she sighed. And I remember that being something about that, I went, I know this. I know that moment. I know getting up, being a nerd, you know what I mean? Like, my real identity is, like, you know, very nerdy, very glasses wearing, and, like, having to take off the glasses, put in the contacts, put in the armor, and go out into your day.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with that, that woman before the armor and the woman after.
Yeah.
And then the second moment was seeing the words in the basketball court scene. She steps onto the court, like, it was in full caps, and it was like a total separate paragraph, because I remember screaming, like, oh my God, you know, and that was the second moment where I went, I am completely 100% in.
Yeah. It was the sigh
It was the sighing, yeah, that first.
and the stepping onto the court. Yeah.
Yep.
That you recognized.
Yeah, it was a feeling of, the first one was a feeling of.
So the sigh is just like a direction, right?
Yeah,
She sighed.
it was just in the act. The whole scene had no dialogue. The whole scene was just this little moment of truth for her that you get to see without it being public, without being a role. It's just her. And it's amazing that it never ended up in the script because I think that's a part of her arc, Charlie's arc.
Oh, y'all
Yeah.
need to put that sigh back in. Let's have a
Somebody use
sigh.
it.
Somebody, let's get a sigh in season 2.
We'll do it. Yes,
We'll
ma'am.
do it. Did you know that sigh had that effect on her?
She told me
Yeah,
afterward. Yeah.
okay.
I think for me, it is, and always will be, the opening scene. If I remember, and I might paraphrase, but I know it was like Nova Bordelon, 37, her tattoos and piercings adorn her body. She walks across the room as if no one is watching. And I was like, I have tattoos. Wait. And it was something about, she walks as if no one is watching. So her confidence comes from her. And not like, I'm trying to be cute for my boyfriend. She's like, I know I'm cute. It's like she already feels sexy. And I just fell in love with the description of that. Because I think I had never seen a love scene as written so vivid and beautiful. And I could really picture this woman walking across the room. So that, for me, really landed right away.
And when did you know, there's obviously everybody comes together, we create the beautiful opening episode, but when do you feel that you and Nova gelled, became
I think it was when I got
locked?
my hair
Yeah.
locked. I think when I actually put the locks on my hair and went to set, I think I just looked at myself and was like, oh, there she. I think there she is. It was the hair with the clothes, with everyone. That's for me, that first day, seeing myself made up as her.
Yeah. And you, Miss Dawn-Lyen?
That's a really good question. I think I struggled with feeling like I had her because in the first episode, we only see her in her power mode. You know, we only see her that way in the first episode, and then the rest of the time, she's just dealing with the remnants, you know, the ashes of what has happened. I feel like, though, something concretized with Micah, with Nagash. Mm-hmm. Something about instantly being connected to him, feeling connected to him, and feeling like that is her, that is a purpose in her life that is completely grounding. And that, I feel like, carried me through the season. It was constant. Every time that I had a scene with Nick, it was like remembering at the core, this is actually more important than anything else.
That relationship.
Yeah.
And for you, Kof?
For me, it had to be the third episode after shooting the tractor scene with the Repo Men. I feel like after that happened and I cried in Nova's hands, it kind of, for me, was just a transitional moment where I just felt like, okay, I actually have to do better. And I actually have to, I was starting to feel like I was really Ralph Angel. Like I started questioning myself. And I was like, okay, I have to do better. I was like, okay, it's real now. And after that, it just became seamless.
I want to know if the writing evolved along with the acting performances.
No, because we were writing, two of our writers from season 1 are here. Good brothers, just stand up and let them see how handsome you are. Jason and Anthony. Jason Wilborn and Anthony Smarts from season 1. Season 1, yeah. We were writing, and you weren't really seeing the performances. I mean, the writers would go and see work as their episode was being made, but not all edited together. We weren't seeing we were chasing. You know what I mean? We were chasing episodes were being made as we were writing them. And so we were really just in our heads more than anything. I mean, there was a lot of excitement when we would cast someone and then having their pictures up and starting to kind of get a feel. But it was, and then a couple of the actors came by the room. But when Kofi walks in a room as Kofi, it's nothing like Ralph Angel. When Kofi first came in, it looked like he walked off a Parisian runway. He got the hat and the coat, and we were just like, Ralph Angel? You know, we couldn't quite, he's playing Ralph Angel, but they're all not their characters. They're very, very different people. And so, anyway, we were writing what we thought were fully formed characters, and I think offering that to the actors. I think this season, though, we, with our room led by Monica Mesa, our new showrunner.
Monica, stand up.
Yep, stand up. Yep, there she is. Killing it already. Second week of the writer's room. They just moved into their new offices. They're feeling themselves. I'm getting pictures. I was like, oh, okay, y'all like the new hit show writers' rooms are a little different than the first seasons. But they definitely now just have this grounding of where we've been and where we need to go. In fact, all Queen Sugar season 2 writers, stand up. They're all here. Whoa. Here they are. Look at them. Beautiful. Look at that. You don't see a room like that too often. Looking good. So, yeah.
I think it's I want to know the fact that now we've been through, 13 episodes you all haven't seen, but oh my God, so good. Listen, we all watched together, and we were like boo-hooing. Like, you know it's good. And I said to these guys, you know you're good when you crying over yourself. I know this is a good series when I'm sitting watching, we like binge watching, everybody, literally, we have been passing the tissue around, and you know it's acting, but I'm telling you, it was serious. Was that serious? That was serious.
It was serious.
That was some serious crying. After a while, I go, okay, everybody. It's called Queen Sugar. We all right. It's okay. We all gonna be all right. But I'm wondering, as the season moved, did that inform you as writers in terms of the characters? Let me move into the audience.
She's doing an
and ask
Oprah
you-
Winfrey.
Hello.
Look at this! Look at this!
Did it inform you as writers?
You mean seeing?
Seeing them come together.
Absolutely, because you saw their souls start to meld with the words on the page, and that always informs you. So, you know, as we're getting, either if we're on the set or if we're getting dailies every day, it becomes very important. So I always tell actors when I'm on a show that those dailies are important because you begin a conversation with your writers that you don't know you're having, actually. Yeah. But we're grounded, obviously, in the work of the book and also what Ava created and the scripts that came before, so absolutely.
And now that we've had season 1, does it make it easier for season 2, do you feel? Season 2 comes easier?
I don't know if it's going to come easier. But we have, these wonderful actors have given us a foundation to build off of. Some interesting things will happen over the next.
I know. I've heard. What are you all looking for in the writing to inform your characters?
I think, well, for me, so much to still come in Queen Sugar. So there is something that I can't, there's challenging moments where I sometimes as the actor go, ooh, she wouldn't do that, or I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Why am I feeling so, oh, that's Nova. Like, it's usually the writers seem to be right on track with where I am as the actor energetically with my character, and it's really weird because it's like, sometimes you really think it's you, Rutina, but it's actually Nova or Charlie or Archangel going through something. So when I get those moments where I'm like, as Rutina, I go, oh, I can't do this, or this is uncomfortable. I have to immediately take myself out of that and go, but what would Nova do? Nova would jump off the cliff. Nova would go. She would go and not worry about being caught. So I had to just jump and trust the writers at the end of the day. And every time I did that, it would all work out. Like, it would be what it's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be awkward and uncomfortable, that is the moment. And so I try to live in that uncomfortable space, which is, you know, not the best space sometimes, but it is good results at the end of the day, because it's, you know, there's a lot of texture in watching someone work through something, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that for me, for whatever reason, I really connected to those subtle descriptors in the action, like she sighs, or she steps onto the court, and it being, you understood just from the way that you put it on the page, Ava, separating it out. Those things for me, you know, I'm a story nerd. I love the whole as much as I love character. So all those things, feeling like I know what I'm serving is really important, and I get some of those clues from action sometimes. But I also feel like, I think part of why I felt like, oh, I didn't never know until toward like the last 3 episodes of the season, if I had Charlie. But I also felt like I looked back and it was matching exactly Charlie's journey. She was unearthed constantly, you know what I mean? And then she sort of starts to find something. And so every episode that we would get, it was like, I'm unearthed, okay, now I'm landing. I don't know what's gonna happen, now I know what's gonna happen. It was something about the scripts feeling very definite that comforted me to just play the story and sink back into the story.
I feel like I was always interested in the circumstances. Like, Ralph Angel wasn't really isn't really a guy of many words. So it was always more about where is he, what is he doing? And I felt like the writers are like, God, like, it's like, what am I to learn in this situation? Like, what is the what do I have to do, Ralph? Like, what am I teaching myself in this? And I felt like that was always what I was excited, and I would always try to assume what would happen next, which I couldn't keep up, which is why I was like, you guys are like God, like I can't predict anything.
Yeah.
And it felt good though, because naturally a growth happened, and by the end of it, I felt, I'm not gonna tell you why, but it was just so much transformation. I just felt like he learned so much, and I learned so much from his journey and everybody's journey. So it was just very resolving, you know.
Well, I would have to say the fact that Queen Sugar is on the Oprah Winfrey Network is the fulfillment of a dream come true. It's what I imagined in my spirit when I said yes to a network and left the Oprah Winfrey Show. I wanted exactly what Natalie Baszile has described and what Ava has talked about. Stories about us, so that you could feel the interior, you could feel the heart, you could know us in a way that our humanity touched your own, no matter who you are or where you live or what your life circumstances. When you see that scene with Blue and Ralph Angel and the father in the hospital room, if you have a family, if you loved anybody, you know what that feels like. So this is the fruition, the manifestation of a prayer that I held in my heart, and the fact that Ava and I became friends, and the whole way it evolved. I know that it is of divine order that this showed up the way it did. And I just wanted to ask you all, so I want to thank you, my friend, and thank you again for the words. And I want to ask each of you what it means to you to be able to speak these words from that script at this particular time in your life. What it means, because you know we've created something really special. And not just from the gifts and the tweets, which I just read the tweet feed, it cracks me up. And not just because people want Ralph Angel's children and what are they called? Ralph's Angels, all those people out there doing that. All of that's going on, which is just bonus, right? Yeah.
Cherry on top.
Cherry on top. But to be able to say those words and to bring that to life, what does that mean at this time?
I just feel like as a young black man, I represent so many of my brothers like all over the world. I relate so much to the character. Beyond the words, words change, words come and go, but the character, who he is, what he represents in a world where visualization is everything. So his black skin, him being a man and not having to be this hyper-masculine character that represents something that's just a facade, you know, human. He's a man, he's a black man, he loves, he has a son, he loves his sister, he loves his father, he's made mistakes, but he's so alive, he's so human. So whatever he was saying, it really, I would rather him not talk. What is there to say? He's trying to figure out his soul, he's trying to get that identity thing down, which I think we're all going through. So it was just so powerful to see those words help facilitate that action without actually getting in the way and having a life of their own. It was literally just a vehicle for him to figure himself out.
Wow, that's great. Dawn?
I'm just trying not to cry because every time that I reflect on and sort of get still long enough to be present to the answer to that question, it's overwhelming and I lose language. This entire experience has been such a fulfillment of my own dream. It's been hard to have dreams being a part of this because everything that I've ever wanted as an artist, everything that I've ever wanted as an actor, ever, and as a collaborator, have experienced in one experience. And and then everything that I've ever wanted as a person in our country, socially, the kind of conversations that the show is sparking, and the opportunity that I feel we have to create something beyond a flashy TV show.
Yeah.
It feels really overwhelmingly beautiful, and so it's hard for me to articulate it, but I think the biggest feeling that I have is gratitude, and this feeling of focus. I think the experience of this show has focused me in terms of what I want to move forward in the world. Being so intimately witness to these two people and all of our cast, but especially to you and to Ava, there is no better education on the planet because it's watching intention manifest, and that intention being bigger than your life. Mm-hmm. It being about your art, but it being about, at the end of the day, your community in the world, your world as your community. Mm-hmm. So for me, this has, every word on the page has been just a piece, a grain, a piece of that puzzle. That's all I'll say about it, I guess.
I know that there's a lot of Novas out there. Women who can heal with their hands and their energy, their hearts, their words, their hugs. Nova has really activated me in my own life. I feel as though if I don't change and move through my life passing light and compassion and love, then I don't know where else it's going to start. So I had to say, well, I have to start with myself. So I feel really activated in reading the news and keeping up with what's going on, and also with everything that Nova handles as a journalist and a Black woman, especially with police brutality and the Young Too Sweet storyline. I just feel, I hope that young men and women can watch and see themselves and be lifted and have hope again, to not give up, to keep fighting, if that makes sense, because I feel like a lot of our youth have, as I have a younger brother and sister, and they've lost hope. So I hope that they could see us and Queen Sugar and really start to have hope again and some kind of light in their lives. So I think it's very important how we do this, and also how we handle it when we talk about it and when we share about it, that we're always coming from our truth, because it's not a stereotype and it's not a show and it's not funny, and we're serious about it. So I just try to stay in that truth when I talk and also in my work, and hope that it comes through.
It does. All right, we're going to take questions from you all. There were some questions submitted in advance from attending guests. Is Oscar here? Oscar.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say that was fantastic. That was amazing. So
I'm
congratulations.
glad.
That was
We're
beautiful. As a writer, my question that I had submitted was, you try to stay away from the stereotypes because you want a show that has writers, screenwriters, directors, and actors who portray something that's close to us. So if I write Latino characters, people that I know, and I put them on a screen, I look back at my writing, and sometimes I want to take stuff out, or I want to change things because I don't want those negative stereotypes to get out there in the world. But, and just as a comparison, the character Hollywood, sort of extreme cases of that. When I write, it's like, do I pull back? Do I want to see just only the good stuff that I want to see out in the world? So for the questions for Natalie and Ava, do you find yourself ever sort of trying to mold it, but at the same time battling the fact that you do have to be honest in your writing and present something that's truthful, so that it plays truthful? Thank you.
Well, I absolutely know what you mean. In writing the book, Queen Sugar, there was a moment early on when I was actually paralyzed because I was so afraid of writing stereotypical male characters to the point where I could not write. And I actually talked with a former professor of mine, and I told him this, and I was saying, David, I'm struggling here because I felt the weight of my community. I felt the weight of, expectation. How was I going to write these characters if there was even a whiff of something that somebody could point to and say, and dismiss because it was stereotypical? And what he told me was, just write the characters. Just write the characters. Let them be who they are. And that was tremendously liberating for me because then it allowed me to push past the stereotypes into the humanity, right? And not worry about how is this character going to be thought of? How are they going to be perceived? If they are human, then that is what people will relate to, right? That's what makes them real. That's what makes them lift off the page. So I would say don't worry.
It's great advice. Yeah, for me, the very fact that women, people of color, LGBTQ people, anyone who's outside of a very kind of narrow paradigm through which most of the entertainment in our industry is rendered, have to even ask that question saddens me, but we do, right? My white male counterpart doesn't even have to think. He can write a buffoonish character. He can write a promiscuous woman. He could do whatever he wants, right? Promiscuous woman. He could write whatever he wants and not have to think about the weight of responsibility and all that stuff, right? And so that's something that, I invite people who don't have to think about that to really understand the privilege and not even having to ask yourself that question, right? And the hope that you will ask yourself that question because you have the privilege and you have the power to change it so that we don't, right? Yeah. But the idea for me in what I'm writing and just my point of view about it is a positive character, a positive black character is just as detrimental as a negative black character because that's not a real black person, right? It's not real, right? The judge in the Law and Order episode who just comes in with the robe and is just dispensing justice, right? Well, that's not real. There's no nuance, no complexity. It's not a real person who struggled with the decision and who might have made the wrong one, right? The idea that, women or people of color have been kind of put in a box of positivity because we're overcorrecting from years of stereotype, it's just as detrimental in terms of creating images that are not nourishing because it's not whole food, it's McDonald's. You know what I mean? It's not, It's not a real, true, full-bodied rendering of a human being and the complexities that we are. So I just say, when I'm writing something, it's a little bit of a gray area, and we really get into a lot of gray areas as we go deeper into the series. People making decisions that you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that's not quite right. And even in this one, you see there's some ambiguous things that are going on morally, but that's what we all are. We're all making those. Our responsibility as writers of color is to be true to our characters as human beings and try to render real, humanizing images. And that means sometimes positive, sometimes negative, but always messy and always truthful and real. So don't worry about it. Write what you want to write, basically, right? Yeah.
But isn't that what we love about our Queen Sugar characters, is that they're just so human, and even all out there in Twitterville, that's what everybody's saying. I know these people. I love
one
Twitter.
tweet that she said Twitterville.
Yeah.
Let's keep it.
Twitterland, Twitterville, Twitter, yeah. Okay.
So keep it to ourselves.
Keep it to ourselves, okay. Yeah. But isn't that what you guys love?
Totally.
Absolutely. I when I told friends what I was working on and I would explain my character, they're like, that sounds like everybody. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to do it like that because everybody who's been through that is still human. So the approach is to, again, render the humanity rather than to act on the cliches and, hyper up all that other stuff. It's like, who is this person? Who were they before they made those choices? Who do they want to be? Now you're dealing with a human being,
Yeah.
I think
on
that's
the
what.
page, Ralph Angel, I'm sorry.
No.
But on the page, Ralph Angel, formerly incarcerated, so what people would call a quote-unquote ex-con, black ex-con with a baby mama who he beefs with, right? And a little kid, he doesn't have a job. In the opening scene, he's robbing the store. But that's not what you saw when you finished, right? But if I was afraid of doing that, then you would have never understood the look in Ernest's eyes, his father's eyes, when he has to leave this world and he knows he's leaving this man behind who still needs him, who still needs that guidance, and he smiles at him, tells him in the only way he can, I believe in you, you have enough, and you're gonna be able to make it. You have to show all that he's battling in order to get to the place, in order to see where he goes. And so we can't bypass those humanizing moments because we're overcorrecting for a society that tells us we can't, you know what I mean, do a certain thing. And so you have to have writers that are brave enough to do it, you have to have networks that are brave enough to do it, and actors who are brave enough to do it right. Absolutely. Yeah.
You were saying, Dawn.
Yeah. I think that's what I meant when I was talking about this being like my dream as an actor, this experience, because it lives in the gray so often. You know, even Charlie is on paper something of a stereotype. The moneyed, glamorous, you know, very powerful, very happy with her very glamorous, powerful life woman. And then by the end of the first episode, you've basically broken all of that and peered into her interior life, and are watching her confront herself. So I feel like that's part of what as an actor, I was responding to on the page every episode, was that there was never a script where any of the characters were anything but in the gray zone. We were always in the gray zones. And it felt like that's actually what defined the feeling of the series. It's why all the in-between moments became important, and the pace of it became important. You have to have that pace to be able to feel that gray and question what's right and wrong, and allow a character to be that human. So I know for me as an actor, that's a dream, is when that gray zone is there.
Do you want to add something?
I agree.
Okay.
Sorry, I was really into what no, I totally, completely agree. Yeah, no, I don't, no, I agree with what they said.
Okay.
Yeah, they said it.
You're good. So Valerie, there may be more than one Valerie. Valerie had a question. Valerie, is this your question? Would you share how and why you made the choices for this series that differ from the novel? Where are you, Valerie?
Hey, Valerie, looking good up there, Valerie.
Okay.
Is that your question? Okay.
Okay. Did I say it correctly? Okay. All right. You don't need it. I just said the question.
We got it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for submitting the questions. And the questions, we were told the questions were submitted by people who bought their tickets to this early, so we just want to thank you for being early buyers and early supporters of this conversation. Yes, the decisions about how to move forward, I'll just have to say, the first time I called, not the first time I called you, but I called you after I had finished the third draft. You had been waiting on it for a while. You didn't see drafts 1 and 2, but 3 is the one that we shot and the one that I felt was closest. And I called you, I feel like it was like December or something. It was November, okay. And I was super nervous because I had to tell her these changes that I'd made. And I thought if anyone called me and told me that they were basically breaking apart characterizations and decisions that they'd made about my work, I just really wouldn't know how to handle it. And so I'm just eternally grateful because you were so gorgeous and gracious in that conversation and really genuinely interested. Like, I would tell you things, like there's a character called Miss Honey in the book, the huge matriarch of the book. Mm-hmm. And I called you, and I said, so there's no Miss Honey.
She did. And she was like,
well, then waiting for her to yell.
What? No,
And she was like, okay. And I said, and Violet, who is Miss Honey's daughter, is now going to kind of take the place of Miss Honey as the matriarch of the family. And she's like,
okay.
And I said, and Micah, who in the book is a girl, is going to be a boy. And she was like,
Oh, okay.
okay,
Okay.
yeah, okay. And I said, and Charlie's husband is not dead. He's alive. She said, oh, and I said, and he has a job. He's a well-known job. He's an NBA star. It's like, just like trying to. I can imagine your face on the phone, but your voice was nothing but beautiful.
Well, and here's why.
Tell
Here's
me.
why. When Ava called that Saturday morning, and I could hear that you actually said, I'm a little nervous to tell you this, but as she described the decisions, the narrative decisions that she had made, the reason why I could take such pleasure in them was because they made sense to me. These were not decisions that she had arrived at lightly. I think as one writer to another, I understood why she had made those changes. She had been thoughtful, she had been considerate, she had been respectful, and she was bringing as much heart to her experience of trying to tell this story as I had brought to.
And you could see nothing was gratuitous.
Right.
Right.
There was nothing that was random or gratuitous or superficial about any of the things that she described to me. And when somebody comes to you with that intention, with that kind of spirit, it's very easy to then say, okay, this makes sense, and give it your blessing and not worry about those small things. I wasn't worried. I have not worried for a second during this whole enterprise. I have not.
Yeah, that graciousness and just real beauty in the response. When I tell her, there's not 2 siblings, there's 3. Oh, there's 3? Yeah.
But that makes
there's
sense.
a whole nother character named Nova. Oh, who's Nova? She said, like, who's Nova? I said, she's the older sister. Oh, older sister? You know what I mean? Like, she just, and just to have that beautiful heart about it. So it really gave us the permission to go and try to extend the story and to really take the story of Queen Sugar to extend it as long as we can, and always so proud to always point people back to the book. People enjoy reading the book and then watching and seeing. Yeah, and seeing, one story told 2 different ways, really. Yeah.
Okay. Anthony asks this. Is there any particular... Anthony, are you here? Because I don't want to say your words if you don't want me to. Okay, I like this question from Anthony. Is there any particular kind of writing structure in developing your work? Who are your literary influences, both in your life and for the show?
I didn't literary influences for the show. My literary influences for the show was really independent film. Okay. I mean, I told you I was trying to make an independent film every week, so I can't point to exactly one type of television writer, but I watched, as I was, creating the show and kind of in that final draft, I was watching a lot of 6 Feet Under. I was watching, I watched 6 Feet Under a lot. Because I thought it was, family as human, family as messy. The framing device was the funeral home, just like our framing device kind of is the plantation. But really not. Really, it's just an excuse for us to show you this family. And I just love the way that they unfolded these stories every week. So I would say, was that Alan Ball, right? Alan Ball and the team of 6 Feet Under was a big inspiration. And I was also watching a lot of Game of Thrones also, which didn't do anything but entertain me and also make me angry that there were no women directors on that show. So I was like, we're going to have all women directors. So we had all women directors for every episode of our show, just like they have all men for every episode of theirs.
Okay, so is there a Tish here? Tish? Okay, because I know you want to ask this question. I won't take it, Tish. Go ahead.
Actually, I would like to expand it to all the actors.
Okay, good, but go ahead.
Because there's a lot of pain without words, and I would like to know, where do you pull that from?
That's so nice of you to expand, because originally it was just to Kofi.
That's funny.
But now she would like to expand.
Expand. It's a great question. I feel that other than circumstance, I'm extremely similar to Ralph Angel, just in the struggle of identity and trying to be this guy for his family and just being ambitious and passionate and being black in America. So I feel his pain. I just don't live in New Orleans and I'm not formally incarcerated. So I think, again, that shows how much we're all alike. And I was literally able to just to take my pain and give it to him, and it looked the same. I didn't have to go to jail. I didn't have to deal with any of that. I don't even have a son. But I feel him, and that's what I want people to understand. We're all the same, so, yeah.
I think this actually goes back to the question that you had asked her earlier, because I think I was really excited to sort of crack open that image of the basketball wife, right, who has it together, and who looks like me. And I felt when I read the script, I know this. And there was something about knowing someone's inherent capability, someone's business savvy, someone's genius, but being underestimated everywhere else. And the pain of just pushing through it, doesn't matter, gonna push through it, and in the process of doing that, actually losing contact with yourself. And actually, I mean, she actually really does completely depend on her husband's, not just monetarily, but she depends on, her entire identity is wrapped up, completely dependent on his experience of everything. And it blinded her. It blinded her in so many areas. She could have missed Micah, you know what I mean? Like, she was really, we talked about this early, give it a year and a half, 2 years, Micah would have been a mess in their life. Really, he would have been a mess. So there's a certain amount of wanting to tell that story, wanting to tell the truth of that story, of this woman who is so careful and has so perfectly erected these structures and has kept it all under control, and what has to be happening underneath and for that to be the case, and to tell that story, which we don't often see, because that's the truth. And in that truth is gonna deepen us more than the image will,
For me, I think it's like when I do Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare, I feel like the words, you just say the words, and it's all you gotta do is speak. And whatever you need to feel, whatever you need to come, it will come as soon as you say those words. They land. And I think we were very fortunate to have writers on this show and scripts that I really felt like as they came, I just had to look into my scene partner's eyes, or I just had to sit in that mirror or wherever I was and be still and not speak. And by the time I would get to those moments where I needed to have pain, or in sort of like I had already built upon how I was feeling about Nova and her essence. So those moments were readily available to me because I had already been thinking about Nova from the first week. And sometimes I think when you don't even have anything you've built on, you really got to rely on your scene partner. There are times where I use music to get me in a character and out of a character. But I always try to keep it with who I'm with, especially if I have someone in a scene. And then if not, I just try to get really still, because your character will start to speak to you. You'll start to feel them in there when you just kind of get still with yourself. So yeah, definitely the words for me and my scene partners.
The words matter so much. That's why we were all so excited to come out on a Saturday afternoon to be with you all. So I want to thank the Writers Guild Foundation Board President, Elias Davis, and Executive Director Katie Bucklet and her staff, and the Writers Guild of America West. Before we leave, Ava, can you give some advice, some words of wisdom?
Oh, goodness.
Hope?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Each writer, I think writers are a world unto themselves because we build worlds in our head. When he talked about I feel like the writers are God. We are creators. We are creators of worlds, and those worlds, when they have the opportunity to live and be produced and be consumed by an audience, it can be food or it can be trash, right? We can embrace what my mother tells me and Oprah tells me is, what do you want to say? So much about this industry is about the sale, booking it, staffing it, kind of keeping that whole thing going. I know so many writers who are in rooms where their soul is withering or are just trying to do anything, sell their firstborn to get in a room, right? That have scripts in the drawer that they can't sell, they can't produce, that have that are pitching around town and are not being heard. And I don't have any advice to give except we must continue onward, right? And that our writing must live in a place without permission, right? So you need to be able to continue to advance your voice, even within these structures and even within this place where so many doors are closing or not opening in the ways that you want. I would just invite people to think about continuing on independently in places, which so many of us do, or finding the joy within a room or just in a scene or in a line or in just the way one character description
Or in a
comes out.
sigh.
Or in a sigh,
Or in a
Those
sigh.
tiny triumphs as writers are things that we can really hold on to. I remember writing, nobody wanted to read it, but we know we still must write. So whether it's the book, it's the screenplay, it's the teleplay, it's the poem, our job is to be vigilant and to continue on. It's a courageous act to create like Natalie Baszile created and passed it along to us. And so anyway, just to say, we must continue. It's tough out there, it really is. And it's easy to sit here and give advice. But I recall, I've only been doing this for 6 years. And I remember 6 years ago with a script for my first short film. And that short film led to my first documentary, and that documentary led to a second documentary. And then I took my house money, I was saving for a house, and made a small film for $50,000. And then the money that I made distributing that film was like $2 extra than the money I'd invested in it. I put into the next film, Middle of Nowhere, and that Middle of Nowhere led to that Middle of Nowhere piece, all of which had been done independently, distributed independently, financed independently, outside of any system, caught the eye of Shonda Rhimes, who invited me to come on and direct an episode of Scandal. And at that same time, Middle of Nowhere caught the eye of the producers of Selma, made Selma out of the blue, and now Queen Sugar and 13th and Wrinkle in Time. And one thing begets another. Each line, each scene, each character, each little piece is a building block, and they will fall on deaf ears more than it doesn't. But at some point, if it is meant to be for you, if it is meant to be for you, it may not be meant to be for you, and that's a hard thing to accept, but if it's meant to be for you, and you continue on until the point that you feel it's not meant to be for you. If you feel like it's for you, then don't stop. I made my first film when I was 33 years old. It was a little short that I made for nothing. I didn't make my first movie, full movie, until I was 38 years old. Way past all the whippersnappers, never went to film school, didn't worked a job for the first four films. You know what I mean? There are different ways to get there, different paths to follow. Follow your own path. That's all I got to say. I wish you all well, and I thank you for coming out to talk to us. Really,
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.